What's up, gangsters and gangsterettes? In Note 2, I'll be talking about the French movie La Haine. It's my favorite movie of all time. It's a movie that has affected me more than any other, and it's a movie that I watch at least once a year, at the very least. So I feel like it's relevant for me to talk about something so impactful to me and share my notes. First of all, La Haine is, like I said, a French movie. It means hatred when you translate it to English, or hate. That's what the theatrical release was in the United States. And it goes on to talk about three youths in the projects of Paris who are Jewish, Arab, and African. It follows them for 24 hours of their lives, and it's a social commentary on police brutality, unrest in France, and issues with the communities in those projects. The movie was inspired by a real life situation, a killing of a young man from Zaire who was in custody, and he was handcuffed to a radiator in a police station. Unfortunately, the gun of a police officer went off, and the man by the name of Makome Mbolowe passed away that day. It is believed that Matthew Kassovitz, who is the director of La Haine, decided then and there to start writing the script for the movie, and that happened in 1993. A few interesting facts about the movie that I have been fortunate enough to learn through watching documentaries or just reading about the movie is the fact that it was actually shot on location in a banlieue, which means a housing project, and the producers of the film told Matthew Kassovitz that they reached out to 15 different housing projects around Paris, and 14 of them actually rejected his request. However, one agreed to let him and his crew film there, and in order to achieve an authentic or most authentic result, the director requested of his leading men, who are Vincent Cassel, Said Tamagui, and Hubert Koundé, to actually live in the projects and see what life is really like out there. So the crew, himself, Matthew Kassovitz, and his three leading men spent 2 months living in this project with only a few mattresses and really immersing themselves in the life of people who actually live there. That, I believe, is a big reason on the fact that the movie is as authentic as it is, and it has had the impact that it's had, because it's not only due to its cinematography or storyline, but it's also the fact that it's strived to achieve as authentic as an outlook as humanly possible, or as artistically possible, if you will. Another fact that people who might not have seen the movie would not know is that it's a black and white film. Obviously, in the 90s, to make a black and white film about police brutality with unknown actors was a very daunting task, and it was a tough sell. So the production company, Channel Plus in France, actually insisted on the movie being shot in color, in case that they want to show it that way. However, until this day, the only scenes that anyone has seen in color of that movie are in the DVD release. Some of the things I want to talk about when it comes to La Haine is the three scenes, or the three moments that I always come back to, the three moments that have left a lasting impression on me. Because, like I said, it's a movie that I watch all the time, and it's a movie that is still relevant to who I am and how I honestly view the world. has inspired me like no other movie has. And I think those three moments will always stay in my mind. The movie itself starts with a quote from one of the characters. We hear his voice, Hubert. He says, "Have you heard about the guy who fell off a skyscraper? On his way down past each floor, he kept saying to reassure himself, so far so good, so far so good, so far so good. How you fall doesn't matter. It's how you land." Like I said, those are the first words that we hear in the movie. I think it sets up very well what is to be expected, and it doesn't hide from the fact that it's going to be a social commentary piece, and it's not just a movie for entertainment purposes. The way I understand that line, the opening line of the movie, is that no matter how hard you try to rationalize your self-destructive tendencies, the end will always be gruesome. In the metaphorical sense, when we hear the guy who keeps falling down from a skyscraper tell himself that so far so good, so far so good, is just a way for him to reassure himself that everything is indeed good. However, the fall is inevitable, and just repeating to yourself that something is still good when you're actually free falling, it's just a coping mechanism, and it's just a way of numbing yourself to the inevitable end, which in this case is literally falling on the pavement. In a broader sense, the fall of the guy and his journey of this false self-assurance is indicative and representative of society as a whole. I think we often try to find a zone of comfort when we reassure ourselves that everything so far is good. However, much like the guy falling from the skyscraper in Hubert's words, we just are avoiding the inevitable, and we try not to think of the fall, which ultimately is what matters. I think and the way it opens up and the way it tackles this issue in a movie from 30 years ago is still relevant till today, and it's indicative of the impact and the influence that the movie has had, and the staying power that it's had. The second major moment for me is one where the three main characters, like I said, their names are Vince, Said, and Hubert. They are arguing in a bathroom in Paris throughout their journey, throughout the day, without giving you any major spoilers. They end up there, and obviously they have some differences going on between them. So they have a heated argument. Ironically enough, in this scene is where the title of the movie comes about. Hubert says to Vince that hate breeds hate. And I think that's like one of the main theses of this movie. But what really always sticks with me in this story is a story of this old man who pops up out of nowhere, who speaks about a friend of his from the olden days, who they used to work together with in Siberia. The story revolves around a person called Grunwaldzki, and his shyness about not being able to relieve himself in front of other people, and just generally being a very shy person. I'm not going to go as far as to retell the whole story because, first of all, it's long. Second of all, I think everyone should see the movie for themselves. But essentially, the elderly man goes into an instance where the train that they were on during their working days in Siberia had to stop to get water for the locomotive, and therefore that was the only time where people on the train could go and relieve themselves. However, the train starts moving and it doesn't wait for anybody, so you have to be quick in relieving yourself. So the elderly man says that his friend Grunwaldzki is seen emerging from a bush, and he's holding up his pants with his hands, trying to catch up to the train. However, the elderly man holds out his hand to help him, obviously, but each time Grunwaldski reaches for his hands, he has to let go of his pants and they drop to his ankles. So then he pulls him up, starts running again, and they fall back down again when he reaches for the extended hand. Then there's an awkward little pause there, and Said, one of the main characters, asks the elderly man what happened then, to which the elderly man responds, nothing. He just froze to death. So within that story, I think there's a lot of ways it can be interpreted. Some people might find it just to be filler. I personally go back and forth a lot on what it represents and what it means. But I think more often than not, I always gravitate towards the fact that it is told in order to show that you need to let go of your pride sometimes, and it's okay to be embarrassed in order to reach your final destination, and to reach the destination that you're aiming for. In Grunwaldski's case, I think he falls victim of exactly that. I think he tries to keep his pants on, but still get on the train. But the train, same as in real life, doesn't wait for anybody, just like life doesn't wait for anybody. And in order to reach your destination, to reach your aim and where you want to go, sometimes you have to swallow your pride, and you have to be okay with embarrassing yourself in one way or another, metaphorically or realistically. I think here, just like in the beginning, from Hubert's monologue, La haine again emphasizes the destructiveness of one's comfort zone and how dangerous that can be. I think it applies not only within the world in general, but especially within the world that La haine builds, because it also poses the question of, are the main characters ready to let go of their pride in order to reach their destinations? And more importantly, can they? Because they might just be products of the environment that they're raised in, the environment that they exist, and the system around them. And I think, yet again, La haine continues to touch on issues that are still relevant today, that are still relevant to anybody who tries to battle with their comfort levels, and wants to step out of their comfort zone. For the third one, the third moment that I want to note is a moment where, again, Said takes a can of spray and he chooses to paint over a phrase that he sees on the street. The equivalent of that phrase in English would read, "The world is yours." However, he paints over the letter Y, and therefore it now reads, "The world is ours." What that means to me and why that resonates with me so strongly is the fact that it shows the power of the youth. It shows the rebellion of the youth. It shows hopefulness and courage, because in order to take such a cliche saying such as "the world is yours" and to turn it into something of your own, that's power. That's brave, and especially within the context of the film, where the world could be promised to you, but if you're a youth from the projects or someone who only sees brutality and no way out, it takes a lot to go out and take something that's just being promised to you. But Said, in painting over the letter Y and making the world his or theirs or ours, he shows a lot of rebellion, and he shows that there is a way for everybody to go and get what they want to get, and what they dream of. And for me personally, I think that's where La haine shows the most power, because it's still relevant till today. I think the way it comments on issues that were relevant 30 years ago is even stronger nowadays. I think These are still topics and issues that plague communities and people around the world to this day. And a movie that came out 30 years ago that still relevantly can answer some of those questions is a phenomenal artistic and human achievement. But most importantly, I think it is capable of keeping important conversations going, and that's the sign of something truly great. That pretty much sums up my thoughts on this note. So until I see you again, you should take notes too.